Avoid lag signals. I think this is recording. Boom. Okay, we're good. We're live. Skylar, thank you for coming on. What's your last name? Lysaker?
Lysaker.
Where did that come from? Sounds like all right. I gotta guess. This is either Swedish or something Northern European.
Oh yeah, it's Norwegian.
Norwegian. See, I got it. I knew it, man. Man, you're like a really, really creative guy. I stumbled across your SoundCloud accidentally, and I was like, dude, I'm following this guy on Instagram. So yesterday, I messaged you, and this like turnaround for this podcast came around really quick. So I definitely appreciate that. And I guess like the beginning of the podcast, I wanted to dedicate a little bit of time to get to know you because you're a very interesting person. On your music profile on your SoundCloud, it says, "I make people feel through music," I believe, right?
Yeah.
How did you get into music, and what does that mean for you? You make people feel.
Great question, man. Music has been a very big part of my life since I was very young. Some of my fondest and oldest memories are me biking around in circles in my basement listening to The Offspring as a child. So just been very enveloped in music my whole life. My dad was a musician, his father was a musician, and my mother's father was also a musician. So I come from a lineage of people who are just creative musically, and growing up, I played guitar, I played bass, I had bands when I was 13 and 14, and eventually, uh, I was a vocalist of a metal band for a few years from age 17 to like 22. That was really fun. Got to play with some of my favorite artists in the world, some of the biggest international touring metal bands that, I look up to. And yeah, so music's been a part of my life for a long time. And if you follow me on SoundCloud, I've made all kinds of music, dude. And I'm really focused on making EDM and chill step and some hip hop stuff right now. But music to me is really my creative outlet, and it's the way that I choose to express myself in the form that when people listen to it, I think they get a good understanding of who I am more from like a soul to soul level than just who I am as a person and like all my exterior and what I do in my life. But that's like how I feel as a person. So when you listen to my music, it's a good representation of a story in my life, but through the melodies and through the progressions of what you hear.
Yeah, definitely in your DNA. What genres did you start off with? Create, I guess, like producing the music before, and like what where you at right now? Because you said EDM and you were heavy metal before, so it's like it's completely opposites, you know?
Yeah, dude. I grew up listening to a lot of punk rock and heavy metal.
Hmm.
So I spent my life when I was playing bass when I was younger, learning a lot of Metallica, a lot of Offspring, a lot of Pantera, stuff like that, and a little bit of like Rage Against the Machine. That's really where I picked up a lot of my influences initially, and then over time as I grew into being older, I started to appreciate other genres more. But heavy metal and punk is really where my influences begun, and it has kind of moved and transitioned into taking that style and sound and moving some of that into like electronic music and in hip hop. I mean, by nature, I'm a writer and I've written hundreds of songs. So lyrically, I've always just been able to I've always aimed to tell stories that make people think and make
Hmm.
people, internalize what I'm talking about. I kind of call it like personal development music because lyrically, I'm not talking about uh, all the time, not always talking about myself. A lot of the time, it's talking about psychology and human nature and the process of us collectively, understanding and realizing who we actually are. So it's kind of like Freudian sci-fi at the end of the day, lyrically, but you know, production-wise, I've just really grown fond of a lot of calmer styles of music now. So if I'm making like hip hop or EDM, it's super chill, super heart-centered, very much more emotional, and that's where you kind of catch that tagline like I make music that makes people feel. Because my goal is to make music that it hits somebody in that emotional center and they will feel it. They don't have to like think about a lyric or that they remember it emotionally. It has an impact on them that way. So that's where that tagline came from.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. I was born in Lithuania, and I remember like the radio stations. I grew up on like this old school trance and this like very deep house, and it was like a regular for me. And I remember when I moved to the United States too, I actually got into like heavy metal as well, like CKY. I was watching like Viva La Band, like I was going
Yeah.
crazy. I was listening to him too, and a lot of Finnish heavy metal bands. I think I forgot the name, Death Star or something. I'm not sure. He has really long hair. I think there's three people. They're like you said, they're one of the most popular international bands. But I wanted to ask you, like, how did the Green Supply, like, do you think that your company was, I guess, the seed that you planted was for music, or how did it come together? Like, how did that idea come, like, bridging? Because I see you're like a very, very creative dude. You have so many different ways to express yourself, and then like this bridge and the logo too. Like I'm looking at the logo. It's infinite, and I'm like, I wanted to learn about like how do you bridge the company and like your inner like desires, and how do you create this like external reality?
Great question, man. So hemp really came around in my life at a young age. When I was 16, 17, I definitely started smoking a lot of cannabis. And I was a very reserved and shy child up until that point. And when I started using that, I actually was able to find who I was. And that's where my creativity was really unlocked. I struggled a lot with being bullied as a kid and not being able to express myself. So as soon as I understood, myself psychologically through those experiences, I was really able to open up and unleash my creativity. So I've really had a fond appreciation for cannabis for medicinal reasons, recreational reasons, CBD, and then now into the textile side because I grew up on a small farm and I really care about agriculture. I care about where our food systems are going today and where our planet is ecologically. So, my passion for this plant is deep. It's going on 10 years now. And over time, I got involved in some other hemp businesses and they didn't really go the way that I planned. And after I left my home state of Minnesota and moved down to Phoenix, I ended up meeting business partners, starting an advertising agency. And, a year and a half into that process, we really wanted to create a product that not only we could, grow businesses and make money and have fun, but also create a product that could benefit people, benefit the earth, benefit our customers, and grow a business that, was more of our own. Because in owning an advertising agency is you're helping other people succeed, but you're not really doing it out of your own passion. And, we wanted to pursue something that we cared about. One of my business partners had a vaporizer company, and, I could all call us, stoners at some point in our lives. But after doing the research again and with my past experience in hemp and textile and clothing, we decided to get back into the clothing side. So, we embarked on the journey about a year ago, and it's been a wild ride, man. It's been extremely exciting, and we've been able to educate a lot of people. We've been able to sell a good amount of products so far, even through a lot of organic marketing methods, and have a lot of growth and put together a super cool team. So it's been exciting.
That's a huge chunk. I'm gonna reverse a little bit back, and you said about bullying and stuff. How did you overcome bullying, and what like specific processes? Because like when people get high, I guess under the influence of marijuana, they open up to like different ideas. They start building their own habits, and such things. How did you, I guess, like once you got introduced to cannabis, how did you overcome bullying, and what were your outlets to, I guess, not let you get like the negative effects from bullying?
Great question, man. Well, when I was in that ripe age, between like entering into your older teens and you're getting closer to the end of your high school career and stuff, there's like all the things happening. You're pursuing, the potential of college. You're starting to date more, and you're getting more into your life, as an adult, as a young adult. But even I still call myself a kid now. But at that time, as soon as I started to have more understanding of like psychology and I started to understand human nature, I was able to really understand why people bullied, why I took it personally, and how my upbringing and how my peers' upbringings affected this, and it created this convergence of me being easily, because the way I looked at it is that I was easily hurt. I took things very personally, and a lot of my peers at the time, the reasons that they did things to me is because they had no other outlets, certain family orientations and things like that. So it happened to just be that I was the person that could handle this type of energy being tossed around. I would call myself like a little buffer of negative
Mm.
energy. So when I understood that I didn't need to take these concepts personally, and that certain people that I knew in my peer group had their own reasons for being certain ways and acting those ways, I was able to disconnect from it. And it was because when I was starting to open my mind up using this plant that I was able to kind of break into that. So I understood that, and then I started devoting a lot of my time not only to music and being open about it and not so scared, but also I got really involved in business. When I was 16 or 17 years old, I got introduced into a business club through my business class, and it was called DECA. It's an internationally known organization for high school and collegiate students to take, and it teaches them economics, uh, finances, presenting, pitching, speaking, and all that stuff. So I really was able to open up there. And my senior year of high school is kind of when I call myself fully blasted open. And that is because I spent every single day working in this business club. We did a project on anti-bullying. And what I had to do, I had to speak on stage in front of my entire school. I had to go to other schools and do that. We were featured on the news. We placed very high in state competition. We went to international competition and placed fourth in the world. So when I was 17, 18 years old, I was not only pursuing business every single day and learning how to communicate, learning how to present, learning how to take criticism from my teachers and my peers so I could, go very far in competition. At that same timeline, that spring of my senior year, I started my first metal band and I was performing shows, lead singer on stage. So within the matter of that 2 year chunk, I was able to just open up. I was able to pursue what I was actually passionate about without being concerned what other people thought. And when I did what I knew I needed to do the whole time and stopped considering the opinions of other people, I was able to find my own lane. I was able to do exactly what I always wanted to
You
do.
found the freedom.
I found the freedom, and since then it hasn't stopped. And that's fueled me to operate my own business and be my own boss for the past couple of years with some of my best friends. It's allowed me to create the music that I want to. It's allowed me to flow freely in my creativity and be around the type of people that I'm around now.
I was gonna ask, what was the thesis for the bullying project? Like, what did you guys present? And I wanted to ask you too, what would you tell your 15-year-old self, or a person that's getting bullied, a teenager?
Great question, man. The thesis was the campaign was called "See It, Say It, Stop It." So
Mhm.
it was a public relations campaign, and the thesis is that if you see something happening, people being inconsiderate, say something about it and stop it. If it means getting involved and standing up for the person, or getting a other peer group or a teacher involved, so you could resolve the situation. So the basis was not, as kids, you see somebody getting bullied, and most people like blinders on. Just like in life as we are as adults, when we see some fucked up shit happening in the world, we put our blinders on and we ignore it. So
Mhm.
the basis was really built on like how humans just like to throw things out. If it's not affecting them, like just ignore that shit. But this basis is more like, all right, stand in your power, respect your group, and if you see something happening, well, just do something about it. So it's teaching responsibility at a young age, which most kids aren't taught. Most kids don't have to go do work jobs to get paid. They don't have any other responsibility besides
Mhm.
getting good grades, and they're kind of left to just roam free and be influenced by media, video games, and music without considering the facets of their actions. So that was the thesis of that. And if I were able to tell my 15-year-old self or any other kid that's going through that experience, I would just say, look, the reason that people do certain things are not because of you. People do certain things because of their own problems and their own issues. And people who project their energies onto you, if they make fun of you, if they call you out in certain ways, if they're inconsiderate, it's because of their own issues. So the best thing that I've learned over the years, and you can read the book, The Four Agreements, just don't take it
Mm.
personally. So stop taking everything in your life so personally. We like to everything we see in the world, every interaction with every person, every time we see media, all these things, we like to like, oh, it's my fault. It's because of this and stuff like that. So we take everything so literal and so personally in our lives, but you got to realize we're in a world with 7 billion other people, and that everything that happens to you in your life, although I would call it your fault because you got to take responsibility of who you are, is not because of you. There's 7 billion of us co-creating this world together. And a lot of things that happen aren't just because of your input. You're simply an experiencer. You chose to be here on Earth right now, but be responsible enough to not take all the bullshit so personally in your life.
Did you speak on stages before? Because you're well spoken, and I was just wondering. You say you started a rock or heavy metal band after high school or during high school, right?
It was during my senior year.
During your senior year. Do you remember the first time you went up and performed, like the feeling before, and how you overcame if there was any like scary feelings before that?
Yeah, I mean, the first time was pretty small show. I still remember, the show was probably like 50 people there, and it was in this little club in this small town. And the feeling initially is still a feeling that I get, and it's more just gentle butterflies.
Hmm.
And over time, I understood that gentle butterflies come, but as soon as the first words are spoken, they usually disappear, and I'm able to kind of move through that. So now, in a business sense, because that's where I focus a lot of my time, a lot of my creative efforts, it's where I pursue, 90% of my life. When I'm doing presentations or I'm on a podcast or anything like that, the butterflies are usually minimal, and if they do come up, they will disappear over time. So there's always a point of tension, and I've studied that from very large musicians and presenters as well, is that
Hmm.
those butterflies, it's like an excitement. So how do you transmute that excitement? And instead of being nervous about the excitement, how do you transmute that and let that empower you and push you to get out of your comfort zone? Because every time you get on stage and you're in front of new people, you're a new conversation or a business pitch, part of you will probably most likely be uncomfortable with it, especially if you're very new to it. So if you can expand past your comfort zone, you allow yourself to step into who you really are.
Do you have any mantras by any chance? Doing anything before, maybe, especially when it comes to business? I was in design, and the thing I noticed in the beginning of the year is like I'm pretty extroverted, and like most of the people in the group, they were like telling me to introduce everybody to clients, and like when it came to that moment, I used to like get cotton mouth. My mouth used to dry out for some reason, even though I was like comfortable on it. There was like that little point, and I had these mantras before. I just used to like imagine, like not say anything, but imagine the whole experience. Like I see myself speaking perfectly, pitching the ideas, and the client is giving great feedback, and I'm just rolling off of that. But recently, I discovered this real estate agent, Ryan Serhant, and he has like this mantra before he starts his day. Before he steps out of his elevator, he says, "Ready, set, go," and that like his starts his day puts him in the mindset as well. Do you have any mantras by any chance?
Oh yeah. So I do a couple different things to make sure that I'm on point, especially if I'm doing presentation in front of people or an audience. I'm always using things called paraliminals. What these paraliminals are, they're subliminal reprogramming meditations. And I purchased these when I was probably 18, 19 years old, and spent a lot of money, probably like a couple hundred, $2,000 on them. But they have a bunch of different programmings. Some are for like money, some are for abundance, some are for speaking, some are for anxiety. It helps put you in the right state of mind. So before I present, before I go on stage, or before I used to perform music, I used to listen to the Talking to Win It paraliminal. So what
Hmm.
that paraliminal would do would give me the right mindset to go into communication and talk to win the conversation or to do
Mm.
your best. So I use those a lot. I also write gratitude every single day inside my gratitude list in the morning, just like I did before this presentation. I usually talk about how I'm happy and grateful for being an excellent communicator, or how I'm happy and grateful that I meet the right people at the right time, or that I'm happy and grateful that when I'm in conversation with people that they find it fascinating. So I'm always programming myself to be my best self, especially in communications, because when I was very young, I was the opposite. I was very bad at communications. Couldn't say yes, couldn't say no, kind of just went with the flow. I had no control and dictation of the decisions that I'm going to make. And word is bond. So what you say uh, calibrates with what you do, and what you do creates your results in life. And a lot of the time, our mental framework, from programming, from media, from music, from friends and family, we don't understand that our habits actually create our life, and our habits are based upon what we tell ourselves. But your subconscious brain doesn't understand the difference between you telling it something and between your dad or your teacher or your friend telling you something. So a lot of times we're running around in life thinking that we are this person that we are because we don't really understand, but we are this person because our brain's a sponge. And if somebody told you when you're young that you're a terrible fucking speaker for like all of your life, or that you're a pussy or something like that, that becomes your programming. You literally become that. So it's your responsibility as a human that if you don't want to be that type of person, what your peers told you, that you now have to go in, put in the work, and tell yourself every single day and prime your subconscious mind so that your mind will now allow you to be in alignment with your words, and your habits can thus change.
Very interesting that you keep writing gratitudes every single day. Did you have any like, I guess these info, like for me when I was in design school, I had these, like you said, programming. I always like did gratitude every 3 hours, and I had like repetitive sentences written. Like I'm a designer. Like I wanted to like I don't really like using that word fake it till you make it. But about a month in, I really started feeling this energy around me, and it was like because I've reminded myself there's the light that it's above me all day, and everything that I do, it just filters through that light because I told myself, and it just becomes like this habit. Like you said, we're becoming like a habit, like animals. Did you have any insightful experiences after doing daily gratitude for years? Like what are the changes since last year to like this year? Like what do you see different about gratitude and how you approach things? Because you know how people usually start off with gratitude, like writing, they don't know what to write, so they just write anything, and then like little by little something opens up. Like you get deeper and you think about that sentence, and maybe I should write something else, or maybe I should find something else in that.
Yeah, great question, man. I would say that the biggest thing that I've learned is becoming more appreciative of things that I didn't appreciate before. So the further I've gone, there's days where I write more about my gratitude for what is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I'm more appreciative for what has happened, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'm more appreciative for what is happening right now. So, some days I'll be like, I'm so happy and grateful that, GreenzSupply is going to be the biggest hemp supplier and brand in the
Mm-hmm.
world. And I'm convicted of that because of our team, because of the actions we take, and because of my mindset. Some days I'm like, I'm so happy and grateful for the clothing on my body because I have clothing that keeps me safe as a human being. Sometimes I'm like, I'm so happy and grateful that I grew up in the state of Minnesota because everything that I learned there has now built me up to who I am today and taught me the lessons that I did. So I just find it interesting. The more that I get into this practice, the more appreciative I become of things that I've never been appreciative of before. So I find myself recently becoming far more appreciative, of my family. I become far more appreciative of the little things. I become far more appreciative of laughter. That's something that I make sure that's in every single gratitude list, because if I'm in a state of like where funny shit is just happening, I
Yeah.
just feel so connected. I feel so connected to myself and in the world and the people around me, and it brings the lighthearted energy into your day of work.
I definitely agree. I had a crazy psilocybin experience a few days ago, and like I don't know what happened. I had drug problems before when I was younger, and like I've had the same thing when I took psychedelics. Like something like got off my shoulders. Like I lost something. I don't feel that anymore. And after a few days ago, after the psilocybin experience, I feel the same way. Like something just came off my shoulders. And everything is connecting. Like you responding really fast. Like this turnaround of the podcast within like 24 hours. And then yesterday I was walking with my girlfriend, and random people were saying like hello, like in a very beautiful way. Like they're hello, like how are you? Like just random people off the street. I was like, wow, like what is happening around me? So I'm trying not to judge anything. I'm just trying to flow with it. And it's just crazy, like how you say everything like is connected somehow. Like we give something and it comes back. And like I had this like huge energy ball like a few days ago after that experience. I messaged you, you messaged me back. I was like, I messaged another person, they messaged me back. I was like, wow, podcast is getting hard, man, because like booking people, everyone has obligations. Everything, almost every time you have to, like, I have to reschedule at least once or twice for the same person until I get it. So it's like the third try that I get them on. And how it happened, it was like pretty cool. But I wanted to get into your beginning stages of like running agency, because that's like the popular thing right now.
Yeah.
Everybody has skills and they want to run agency. Myself too, I stopped working for design agencies and I want to run like a specific service myself. I'm kind of over it because I've been in design almost 5 years, so it's like the fake it till you make it doesn't really apply anymore. But there's still like I still have concerns sometimes, like shit, like what if this project doesn't go that well, and like what if the customer is hard on me, and then like like you never want to disappoint people. Like that's the biggest responsibility. And I wanted to ask you, like, when you started off your own agency with your buddies, how did you guys approach it, and like what were like the biggest problems that you guys were having?
Great question, man. This is always an exciting one to share. So the agency was created because at one point we had an Instagram growth bot, and this was before bots got really big. This is like 2.5 years ago now, and what we noticed was that my business partner, who was running the bot by himself, he brought me and my other partner Jared in, and we kept having clientele ask for like actual marketing, so like video content, Facebook ads, funnels, and stuff like that. So with where we saw Instagram going, with them starting to create more software that was seeking out bot companies and shutting down accounts, we decided to play the long-term game. We decided to put that company out of business, and we decided to start an agency. So people were asking for it. We were in the right mindset. We had no other obligations. We're like, let's fucking do it. So, we started educating ourselves every single day, working like 16, 18-hour days, just like learning from the best people that we could find around us. On top of that, we started getting plugged into networking communities in the area, and we built out a massive network of people here in Phoenix that we know now today, and that have allowed us to not only provide value to them, but receive in return. So that's kind of how it was born. The biggest lessons that I think we've learned, it's interesting because every city kind of has its own vibe, but here in Phoenix, everybody leaves in the summer, and one of our mentors told us right away, so how much cash flow do you have saved up for the summertime? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, clients leave in the summer. And we're like, no, we're good. And, lo and behold, the first summer we were here, we lost like 3 clients and like 10 grand a month. So we're like, oh shit, like this is not good. So one of the first lessons we learned is that, keep your pipeline full, and make sure that you always have lead flow and cash flow going versus your expenses, because we put ourselves in sticky situations thinking too short term instead of being more long term about it. The second biggest thing that we've learned that has now allowed us to make a lot of change and adjustment in our business is to niche. So for a long time, we didn't really have a niche, and for good reason, because we were learning all the industries. We wanted to find out what we liked. We had really good success with healthy restaurants. We had good success with some real estate people, but then, we came across a yacht client. They're a luxury lake yacht manufacturer here in Phoenix, and we created insane success with them. So between one of my partner's passion for boating, between realizing that the maritime industry is a very underserved niche, we were like, all right, let's move into the maritime, into the boating and yacht world, and just specify our ads, our build outs, our systems and processes for this type of clientele. So, recently we've niched, and now we're finally heading back into that direction of taking on more clientele in that space. So, niching and making sure that your cash flow is always far 3-4x above your expenses is, the biggest lessons that we've learned.
How did you guys discover your first client, and how would you recommend, I guess, people who are starting an agency to find their first client? I have my own way, like for design sprints, since we've built products in like 5 days. I could like literally run a 2-hour workshop, and I give everything away. Like I don't care about anything. Like I give all my knowledge away, because like towards the end of the day, like you're the expert. People are still gonna come to you. They could only get done like this much, but to take them there, you're gonna be fit into that like little spot. So question is like, how did you find your first client? What would you recommend to first agency owners?
It's funny. Our first client actually came from a job that I was working at. So I was working when I first moved to Phoenix, and before we went full on in the agency, I moved out from Minnesota, and I kind of put all of my savings that I had at that point of time from working in the music industry and between my last business and kind of resetting after, I had a big transition in life. I had a couple of years ago, I had a very big relationship end. I had an uncle and some cousins pass away in a car accident, and I decided to end my relationship with my last business partners. So all that stuff was happening, and I decided to move out to Phoenix, Arizona. So it was like a lot of baggage at that point in time. And when I moved out here, I came here with very, very little, and I had a van, and I drove out here. My van almost broke down in New Mexico. So I came here, with just enough to get going, and I ended up getting a job at this place called Protein House. It was a smoothie shop, healthy fit kitchen. It was really cool because I'm very interested in health and, like I said earlier, food and stuff like that. So I got involved there, and I just started making free videos for them. I started making Instagram story videos of like acai bowls getting made or certain food items getting made, and I started providing them a lot of value. And then over time, we were starting the agency, and I was still working there, and we eventually transitioned them from like just getting free content from me into an actual client and running paid media for them. Building them landing pages, driving traffic to their storefront. And made them really, really big pretty freaking quick. So and that was back in 2017. So it was an exciting time. And eventually, 2 months after we made them a client, I was able to quit that job, and they were just my client. So instead of me working for them and being in there, they're just paying us to do ads and build their stuff out.
How did you that initial moment like for GreenzSupply, was that something that came randomly, or you had, I guess, planned that before?
I was always passionate about it because I was involved in other hemp-based apparel projects before. And when we got to a point at the end of 2018 where we just realized like we want to make a product that we really care about and that also showcases our skills of, building a brand, building an e-commerce storefront, running ads, scaling it, and like building an actual business, we decided to move into it, not only because of our passion in cannabis and hemp, but we wanted something that was our own. We wanted full control of it, because with an agency, you don't have that much control. You get to run their ads, you get to help them with their sales process and some of their design, but like operations, finances, sales, all that other stuff that has a lot of variables in how you do. So if you're running really good advertising, but their sales team doesn't know how to follow up with closed leads, you're not going to get paid accordingly. If their operations is shit and their products aren't getting out in time, then your marketing is nil, and so on. So, what we found is that people you can get cut out real quick. If they start messing up anywhere else in their operations, marketing's the first to go. So we realized that the service industry, although it is a very profitable industry if done right, you have to consistently bring in lead flow consistently. So it's a lot of work. It's not, I don't think it's anything different than building any other business, and you got to put in work, and it takes time, and you got to be patient, and you got to eat shit. But for like what we're passionate about and the time we want to spend in certain areas, it's just like, oh boy, this is the reality of the scenario. This is not a Ty Lopez course, the kids that get lucky on there, man. And although, I've met like Jordan Gross and have had really good conversations with them, and I've met some of the people that have created success, like not everybody's that way. And if you follow Alex Becker, he dropped a video that, talking about wealthy people are often very lucky. So, there are some people that are just in the right place at the right time, and they might just get a $40,000 client up front and be like, holy shit, I did it. And then boom, you're off. But that's the way it is. So some people hit it hot at the right time before it trends, and some people get in the middle and they got to put more work in. But that's what I'd say at the end of the day.
Can you talk about the process from your idea to actually getting the first physical shirt made and like the logo and everything? Like, how did that feel, and how did you guys go from zero to a physical product from the internal reality to external? How did you brought it out?
Well, the logo, my partner Hunter actually had this logo for one of his past companies, and it was a cannabis vaporizer company. And with us using hemp and our push for sustainability and ecological benefits, having an infinity logo representing sustainability, renewability is a perfect simple little icon to represent the brand. Also, with us being called Greens, it makes sense. It all has its alignment. So that's where the logo was birthed, and the concept really started when from my past experience, I knew the manufacturers already. So I already had some of the supply chain down. So I knew who to go to for the textiles. I knew what we had to do to get product done very generally, and we just followed the path. So it wasn't too long before we started getting samples, and it wasn't, that much longer until we had finished products. And then, it was a couple months, honestly. Like we started in October of 2018, and now we're about to be back there again. And, we sold a couple hundred products, and we have a designer right now. The change that I think is the craziest is that from October 2018, it was just me, Hunter, and Jared. And it took a couple months to get products up, to get some media features in High Times and Dope Magazine and start running ads. We tested ads for like a couple weeks until I realized, all right, we need to rebrand, we need to rethink what we're doing, we need to build a bigger team. And from there to now, we go 1 year later about, we have a team of 9 people that have equity in our company. We have an advisory board. We brought in a designer that's ex Ralph Lauren and Levi Strauss. She's got 20 plus years in fashion design experience. We have a ex Fortune 500 CEO that sits on our board. We're raising money right now. We made some position changes, and it's in a completely different place. But the amount of time, the amount of thought, the amount of sacrifice that we made to get there and to get to this point is crazy. Like, running a startup while running another startup is something that I never actually recommend. And we totally did it. And we somehow have made it out on the other side, and we're still cooking with both of them. But, it's been a very hard past year. That's for sure.
Do you remember how did you guys start targeting the people, and like when you started establishing your brand in the beginning, was there a target or like a user persona that you guys created, or you guys went about it like, hey, we just want to sell shirts for people that like hemp? Because usually it starts off with like a very simple sentence and you just keep going, and I see a lot of failures from a lot of people because it's too general. So I wanted to know, like, how did you guys define your ideal persona?
Well, to answer that, we're still defining that ideal persona. We definitely did come out and be very cannabis oriented. We were very edgy, very streetwear when we first came out. We just thought we were badass. We're gonna make clothes for like skaters, for like motocross, and it's gonna be a streetwear. It's gonna be like edgy and grungy. And then we started realizing that, we're creating an eco-friendly, sustainable product. Why are we doing that for people that aren't really in that niche? So, we'd spent a lot of our time and dollars trying to target that industry without much success. So what we did is we started lightening up some of our content, started educating more on hemp and the sustainability, and started switching our advertising to more people that appreciate eco-friendly stuff, organic stuff, veganism, all those target markets that appreciate, high quality, a little bit more expensive, hemp-based goods.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that we're still finding our niche. We still have people coming in from, both sides. But at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is create, like an Adidas Vans hybrid, but everything's done with sustainable hemp fibers. A lot of our competition, they're either super like weed heavy, marijuana leaves all over their product, or super cannabis oriented, or they're very boho cheek. Like I live in Los Angeles and pay $120 a t-shirt type shit. So, and we're not either of those things. We have permissions to run ads on Facebook and Google because we're Facebook and Google partners. Some of our competition can't do that because they're too cannabis oriented. And a lot of our competition is just, they're so niched into like hippie cheek style that they're missing like, I don't know, 80% of, all people. So we're sitting here in the middle looking at it from the perspective that, all right, we're really creating a brand that, a grandpa could wear a shirt to like a kid that skateboards, and everybody will appreciate it because it's the core basic items that you need: the hoodies, the tees, the hats, the socks, the shoes, the jeans, the basic stuff. But we're not going to get too gnarly with like making crazy ass shit that's, in certain niches, not until we're further along and we want to experiment. But we're really going to be focusing on making core products, taking those core products and giving the people what they actually want. So it's involved a lot of testing, a lot of surveys with our customer base, and a lot of, R&D with product. And we're just happy to have Alana on the team because she's been designing fashion for 20 plus years with some of the biggest brands in the world. So she knows what she's doing, because we don't. We do other things like, the business side, the operations, building our relationships, and she can handle product and design. She knows the trends. So
how did you guys, what kind of like marketing funnel or just the frameworks that you guys used to sell the first 200 shirts?
A lot of it's been organic, man. I mean, we ran a good amount of Facebook and Google ads, spent a lot of money for not that much of a return because we were aimed at the wrong target demographic. Like, it's funny. It's all a test, man. It's all an experiment until you hit it. But we have done a lot of that, but a lot of it, dude, was like the people that we know. So a lot of friends and family, a lot of me making educational content on LinkedIn and reposting on Instagram. And a lot of repeat sales, man. Like, believe it or not, everybody that's probably bought a green shirt has at least half of the available colors right now. So anybody that's probably purchased a shirt has 3 to 6 of them, like, no doubt. So we have a very high returning customer rate because people really, really, really like the products. They really like the feel. They really like the benefits of the hemp from the consumer perspective, and they know that they're purchasing a higher quality product that may be a little bit more expensive, but they get to wear it for longer, and it represents and it means something to them. So our products are our customers and our fans are very, very loyal. But, we do a lot of interaction with them. I'm being really connected with the first group of people that have bought, staying in
Mhm.
cahoots with them, emailing them, offering them other opportunities, discounts, and stuff like that, because we understand that your first couple hundred customers, will build your brand out for forever. So we're in the business of repeat customers, not one-time sales. This ain't no cheesy dropship product. This is a actual business with a supply chain, a manufacturer, a print shop, a warehouse, actual equitable partners. This isn't some, Amazon dropship business. This is like, an Amazon or a Nike being rebuilt over, but done with hemp. So it's a new level.
How did your frameworks change in the beginning versus now? Because I was listening to one of the entrepreneurs, I forgot the name. It's kind of interesting that he said the first 2 years you want to work as hard as you can, and then he's like the 2 years become like completely opposite because you have to optimize your processes and you're not supposed to really like, like grind 24/7, 16-hour days, and then it like changes. What were the biggest shifts, especially when you started? Because I saw you have a huge freaking team. I mean, for me, that's huge. Like 9 people in advisory, like that's insane for me. But what were like, how did you guys change your process and like the motivation and objectives versus like the beginning startup versus now?
Well, I could tell you at the start, we thought we were just going to be able to like load up on a bunch of product and e-com the shit out of it, and there'd only have to be three of us. So
Yeah.
I could tell you, we came in with the classic millennial entitlement perspective, and here we are now, more building it traditionally for long term. So that's why we
Mhm.
brought in advisors that have been in the game, that are way older than us. They can guide us on the right things to do, because our mindset as founders is, you know, we don't have to do the books because we have a CFO. We don't have to do the design because we have a product designer. We don't have to worry about
Mhm.
operations because we have a person for that. So we focus a lot of our time on growing the brand long term, thinking very, very far ahead into the future, building long term relationships. I'm getting onto a lot of podcasts, building a lot of educational content, and having meetings with our advisors about, as we scale, do we want to acquire competition? Do we want to merge with certain companies? How are we going to exit this company? So our mind is more, a couple years ahead, and what handful of steps can we take every day that push us towards that goal? Even if it's 1 to 3 things, what are the 1 to 3 things that you do today that make your brand a little bit more known, that make your brand a little bit more profitable, and that impacts at least one more person's life?
Mhm. How did you guys? It's not even how. I would say like, how would you recommend for people that are starting a business, like the first person that you hire?
I
And who
mean,
was the first person that you hired besides like you and your buddies, right? That you started off like when you guys came to that realization, like shit, we need like help from other people. How did you reach out and like what kind of, I guess, objectives you guys came about?
great question. Well, the first person that we brought in, and it was more equitable instead of cash hire up front as
Hmm.
an equity exchange, was our good friend and our CFO and our other company, John. So we gave him part of the company to own, to take care of all of our accounting and taxation and that stuff, because that's
Hmm.
his skill set. So we brought him in, and then over time we brought in Alana, who's a designer, and we did the same thing with her so she can take care of product design and
Hmm.
operations and stuff like that. So a lot of it for us has been, we know the pieces that are most important, especially when you're raising money for a company like we are right now as we
Hmm.
scale. We know what investors want to see. We know that the pieces we need to succeed, because in our other companies and in past, we've failed. We've eaten shit. We've done the wrong things. So we know exactly what not to do, and we've taken enough advice from people that are very, very well knowledgeable beyond our years. So we know the people that we need to bring in. Like I said again, this is not some e-com business. It's not drop shipping. You're not gonna sit in your house and like run ads and boom, you're good. This is, you're building a huge team. You're building a supply chain. You're building a manufacturing process. You're building high level relationships with people and influencers that could, completely transform your business. You're making products. Some of them you're designing yourself and making the decisions on. So it's I would say that the level of business that we're doing now is way different than it was a year ago, because we've grown a lot as, I would say, entrepreneurs, and we really set our egos aside and we live every single day knowing that we don't know shit about shit and that we're always open to learn. One of the biggest things for us is being teachable and being open to change and being open to being wrong, because most of the time we're not right. That's just one of the beautiful things about life, is that when you have a team and you have people that you trust and rely on, you can have communications, you can make bold moves, but if you're wrong, you have 8, 9, 10, other people to seek counsel and advice from, and find a good decision. So at the end of the day, we're building like a unified structure of people that are on the same vision. Everybody that's involved in our company right now has integrity. Everybody that's involved, owns part of the company, and it's everybody's best interest to make this win. So one person versus nine person trying to make a company win versus one is a lot better, especially if the 9 people, have already been successful, have already done big things, and those 9 people, are all want this to win because everybody's involved.
I noticed that I wanted to ask you too, I guess, to give advice to all the other cannabis and hemp businesses, because a lot of startups that are starting out right now, they don't have a lot of money. So like the equity exchange will happen for almost everybody that I noticed, even farms. What kind of advice would you give? Because I noticed one designer, Adrian Smart, they run design sprints. He gave equity to his partner and then he had to buy it back like 3 years later. What kind of advice and like, I guess, like decision making, how do you agree upon equity for long term, and how do you see if the person that's gonna own a piece of this creation is gonna be like beneficial to the company?
Well, you have to be good. Your intuition. You gotta really understand human nature. So I know Ty Lopez, he makes all of his employees take like certain tests to understand like how they
Mm,
are
yeah,
psychologically.
yeah.
For us, it's really about understanding a person's integrity. So we ask them the right questions. We know who they are as a human being, how they make decisions, how they sacrifice. And I'd say that we're all pretty well rounded in understanding how people behave.
Hmm.
So for us, we'll know within a couple of meetings if a person is worth our time of bringing to the business or not, based upon their past experience, based upon their social presence, based upon how they hold themselves, how they communicate, and their integrity. So if we hold ourselves to a high ability of or high accountability of integrity and ethics, we're going to know that other people are around us who are and who are not like that. So unfortunately, I've left business partnerships because of stuff like, your friend went through. So my other partners, they've had to fire friends, they've had to, buy equity back or sell out. Like all those things happen. But at the end of the day, one of the biggest lessons that you can do as a business owner if you're giving away equity is that make sure that who you bring on, that you could work with them for like 20 years. Can you do that? If you don't see yourself doing that, then no, not really worth your time. Same with, investors and stuff. Don't work with an investment group or team that doesn't really see your vision. Make sure that you can be friends with them. Make sure that you can get on the same page. Make sure that you can hold each other accountable. They're not going to take shit so personally, because in business, you're going to have a lot of good ideas that get shot down. You're also going to shoot down ideas that are good, and you're going to have to make decisions that, make or break your business. So it's not always about you. It's about the end goal of the business, always. So like if there's ever a point where one of us are absolutely sucking shit as an executive, it's on our best due diligence to call each other out, hold each other accountable. And if we can't be accountable over a certain time, then we need to remove ourselves. So that's the way we look at it at the end of the day.
How do you guys run behind the scenes, I guess? We pull the curtain, like team performance, do you guys track anything? Do you guys have specific objectives for specific people of their strengths? Or is it kind of like, I don't want to say like the modern agency, like the one that's openness. Do you guys have like specific process? Like, are you guys like linchpins? Almost like everybody has their own skill, and then you guys are linchpins, and you guys dedicate all that to greens.
Yeah, we're more like linchpins. We all have our own skill. I would say 95% of my time is greens. One of my other partners is 95% on the agency, and one of my partners is 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Just because with running 2 businesses, you can't be hands-on and everything in both, because it'll drive you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So there is not much bouncing around. There's a lot of dedication from me as the CEO in Greens and as Jared as the CEO in the agency. Our
Mm-hmm.
focus is pretty much only in those all day. We obviously have conversations because we're equity holders in both the business, and I have a skill set or two that's needed in the agency, and he has a skill set or two that's needed in Greens. So we, at the end of the day, we know exactly what we're good at. We know what we're not good at. We know what we want to do, and we know what we don't want to do. So we've sat down, and every single person has told us what they want to do and what they don't want to do. So everybody knows, all right, well, Skylar, if we need copy, all right, Skylar's doing it. Oh, Facebook ads, Hunter's doing it. Google, Jared. So any of those skill sets or things, we know exactly who's going to do it. There's no ifs, ands, and buts. If there's certain decisions that need to be made in businesses, if you are running in a certain role, you can make that call. It's good to go. So there's a lot, within the operations agreement, within, the mutual understanding of the business that your position does these things and it doesn't do these things. So don't step on each other's toes. If there ever is a problem or a decision that needs to be made that can't be made by that person, or they seek counsel, then we have certain voting rights that allow us to do that. And for example, we had an experience yesterday where one of us wanted to do something, one of us didn't, and it was up to me to make that decision. So, we're put in those situations, and you just got to trust in your team, man. So it kind of goes back to your other question. How do you make a decision of who you bring on? Find somebody that you trust and you can rely on, that holds the highest personal integrity and the best interest of the company, not personal interest.
What was like the worst moment running Greens, like worst day where you felt complete shit, I guess? Was there any moments like that where it just felt like you might have to stop a little bit, might have to take a break from Greens, or encountered a huge problem?
I think we encounter problems every single day, but it's how you are as a human being to handle them. I think the biggest moment that was a bummer for us is when we got placed in high times. We thought that was going to be like the goal. We're going to freaking blow up because we're in high times. This is dope. But it was not the case. And that's an expensive loss. So that was probably, and that was, 8 months ago. That was probably one of the biggest like L's that I think we've taken. But at the end of the day, everything's experimentation. So that was my biggest bummer. Everything else has been like just a process. It's just been good. I've enjoyed it.
Can you talk about the details? What happened by any chance?
With high times?
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, we just expected that since we are a hemp brand, and since that stoners like hemp things, that if we're in high times and we get like a bunch of views between their social media, and we start accrediting it ourselves, we just thought that that's going to equal to like equivalent sales, but that just wasn't the case. So we thought that having that type of media attention would equal sales, but it's not. It's just like the same thing with the news. People think that if they're on the news, like fucking boom, their business is set up for life. Not the case. You don't get to be like marketed one time and then everybody's just going to come to flock to you. There's a process of marketing. There's a sales process. There's growing your brand. You got to be a certain level of known. How does your product interact with the target demographic? All those things we thought we knew, but what we thought we knew just was not true. So we made that decision based off of an assumption, and then we got to reap the repercussions of that. And it was all a lesson, man. All good fun at the end of the day.
That's like designer's job, is to always like kill the assumptions and question them.
Yep.
What is like the biggest winning moment for the business, or you felt like you've hit that like the new like era or something? I guess like the doors, you open a new doors. Was there that moment yet?
That moment happens to me every day, but I'd say more recently, within the past week, that's what's happening right now. That the whole past week, just with us finalizing our team, with us bringing in the advisors that we have, with us bringing in the designer that we have, and our ability to grow and the processes we put in place, I feel very, very confident what we're doing. The most confident that I've ever been. I am so aligned with the vision. I know what I need to do every single day to continue to push this forward, and I'm confident as fuck in our team. So I feel that what you're talking about every single day, but it's been amplified, over the past week.
What would you give? What kind of advice would you give to businesses starting out? And then the second question would be, where do you see like what trends are moving in the hemp and cannabis businesses, and I guess your own perspective from your own eyes, from your own experiences, since you're kind of embedded in the business now and it's like part of you.
Definitely. I would say the number one advice that I can give to business owners is that you can't do it all on your own. Make sure you're outsourced, and make sure that you question your personal integrity every single day. So you don't know everything. Know that. Find a team that can do the things that you can't. Know that. and make sure to question your integrity and your business actions every single day. Those are my top 3 tips. And then in regards to the hemp and cannabis space, I think it's a massive bubble right now. I think that a lot of farms and a lot of investors are going to lose a shit ton of money in cannabis and CBD because it's a trend. I think it's up like this. It's going to come right back down, just like Bitcoin, just like anything else that's a trend. It'll come back around and it'll stabilize over time. And I think that hemp textiles and hemp clothing is going to be way bigger than CBD and cannabis, and people just don't see it yet. That's kind of my projections right now.
What was your biggest learning running a business, if you could describe to a 5-year-old?
My biggest lesson, if I could describe it to a 5-year-old, I would look at that 5-year-old and I'd say, build a team.
Awesome, dude. It's almost an hour. I don't want to take most of your time. Dude, thanks for this podcast. It's like, I'm going to have to like go over and look at it and cut out biggest pieces because there's a lot of knowledge. And you changed my mind too, just being in the hemp industry. This is like eye-opening talking to somebody. I just let you speak and you just like put all this out in front of me. So thanks, man.
Thanks for having me on, buddy. I appreciate it.
Awesome, dude. I'll talk to you, man.
All right. Peace.